Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question. Hi Jason, what do you think about dumbbell pullovers? This is a lift that nobody seems to do these days, but was a staple of old school lifters back in the day, builds both chest and lats. No, it doesn't build the lats. I understand that some people like to mess a little bit with cable press downs and stuff for the lats. I don't think that's particularly effective, mainly because it just doesn't recruit enough of the lat. But the dumbbell is dramatically inferior for that. So it's not really a lat builder. In other words, if you did 35 sets of that a week, it might build half the lat that 3 sets of rows a week would build, maybe. It's just not that much stimulus, even though the lat's used. As far as the chest goes, yeah, there's definitely some chest involvement. A lot of serratus, a lot of intercostal. So some of those muscles, it can be useful for building that. So it could be a good supplemental lift. It can be good if those areas are weak for you. Me personally, I have a client who pulled an intercostal doing light deadlifts. It was just a minor strain, and it went away with it by the end of the workout. But he got some pain through there, and so I have him start doing pullover type skull crushers, right, with an easy curl bar to help with that. But that's ultimately what it comes down to. It was a popular exercise, and yeah, I can give some stretch there, but it's not going to do as much as you think it would. Now, does it mean it's an inherently bad exercise? No. But with a dumbbell, that wouldn't be the best tool. And I know that was popular back in the day. It's because they didn't have other stuff. But if you think about the movement, if you wanted to even do something like that with a free weight, something like an easy curl bar will actually give you a lot better tension through the whole range of motion. So the dumbbell itself puts you in a position to where you lose a lot of the effective range of motion from the awkwardness of it. So that's why I wouldn't even recommend it with a dumbbell. Just do it with something like an easy curl bar if you wanted to do it at all. But keep in mind, it's a pretty minor exercise in the grand scheme of things. Not saying it's a bad exercise. Not saying it might not be useful for some people for supplemental, a little bit of extra chest and intercostal and stuff, because it can be. And it can actually probably help stretch certain areas out, maybe your shoulders, right? Not a bad exercise. But it probably isn't as important as some of those guys seem to have thought it was, right? Doesn't mean it's not useful, though. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it if you want to do it. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. Does GPP work can increase your maximum recoverable volume? Of course it does. Of course it does. Doesn't mean you can do the GPP with the extra volume always, not necessarily, because the GPP has a lot of volume to it. But if you think about it in this context, what does GPP do? It's general physical preparedness. It's usually strength-based conditioning work. Things like Metcon, sled drags, loaded carries, right? Done for volume. CrossFit is largely based upon GPP. Well, those people are usually in pretty good shape. I mean, let's be realistic here. In terms of being in shape, you look at CrossFitters versus even bodybuilders. Come on, they're in way better shape. And you guys know what we mean by in shape. We don't mean the bodybuilder term. We mean the sports term. So, GPP can increase work capacity. Well, what else does it do? It teaches you to clear waste products. If it builds your work capacity and increases your ability to clear waste products and everything else, yeah, of course it can raise your maximum recoverable volume. Of course it can. For example, look at what I did last year. You guys remember I was doing GPP work for a while, 7 days a week. Then I cut it back to 3 pretty serious amounts while running a 4-day conjugate concurrent periodization split, right? I was doing Metcon work, a lot of it. All right, that brought my training ceiling up. And I took that phase of GPP. In that case, what do we mean? Well, max work, speed work, because that's all technically GPP. I mean, that just makes you good at sports in general, speed squats, speed pulls. We could argue about how specific it is to something like max strength. It's general physical preparedness. It all fits in. But especially with the GPP conditioning work. I did all that, then I switched over to training 7 days a week with 1 rep max lifts every day, followed by high volume supplemental work. I'm still recovering. Still recovering. Take my deloads, but I go a month plus at a time without a day off. Okay, I brought my maximum recoverable volume up. Now, I had to cut the GPP out to do that because I've already built the maximum recoverable volume. I've built the work capacity, built these things. And now I translated it into sport specific. Well, what do I mean SPP? What do we mean at this point? Max strength, maximum size. Okay, maximum size and strength. This is my sport specific. It worked quite well, didn't it? So the answer is obviously yes, of course it does. So I could kind of explain to you the theory, and then I gave you the example of how I specifically did it. Absolutely works. You can increase your maximum recoverable volume by just getting into better shape because you recover better. Right? We have both a higher work capacity and we improve our ability to clear waste products out of our body by being in better shape. It would behoove you to do so if you want a higher training volume to maximize gains. All right, next question. Hope I'm not too late, but what does it mean if during wider stance squats you have hip pain, but you go closer, it goes away? Okay. Reminder for you guys though, when you see the sticky, if the Q&A is stuck to the top of the thread, you're not too late. Okay. If you see it still pinned to the top of the page, it's still open for questions. When I unpin it, it's no longer open for questions. I'm not going to use it again. Which fascinating, like 5 people will still ask questions in it 5 days after I unpin it. How they find it, I don't know, but they do. But no, you're still good. So the wider stance gives you hip pain. Well, people need to remember, generally speaking, you're going to be stronger with the widest stance that you're capable of doing correctly. Right? It's better to have a wide stance if you want to lift maximum weight. This whole idea that people come up with low bar versus high bar is really biomechanically kind of ludicrous. Because it's not the bar placement that lets you lift more weight. It's the fact that most people go wider stance when they go low bar. Right? That's why they lift more weight. But I digress. And you should be look. I'm doing a pretty wide stance there. If you'll notice, it's fairly wide. That max squat in the background, which is, what is it, 507 plus 101 pounds of chains. So wider stance is generally better. However, you're going to be limited by your personal mobility. Now, that means if you're getting hip pain, your stance is too wide. You need to bring it in a couple inches. Bring it in a couple inches. However, is that permanent? No, it probably isn't. It's possibly a temporary situation. Very possibly a temporary situation. Means you have muscles that you need to work on. Adductors, abductors. Could be part of your quad contributing, right? One of the heads of your quad. As you get down there, you can tell which one it is. As soon as you go to a wide stance, you know which one I'm talking about too. Will be impacted by this. Okay, if you get hip pain with a relatively wide stance, not super wide, because some people can't go super wide. It's going to depend upon your hip structure, the physical structures of your hip. Some people can't go ultra wide, but you can probably go wider than you do now. You're going to have to work on mobility. Well, what is mobility? In essence, what's mobility? Mobility is strength. It's not flexibility. It's how strong are you at the terminal joint angles. In other words, when you go to the widest stance that you can physically do, how strong are you at the bottom of it? Okay, that's what mobility means. How strong are you at the terminal ends of your ranges of motion? Therefore, mobility is a strength issue. It is very possible that you have a strength weakness. You have a muscle weakness. It's causing this. Work on those muscles. Work on that strength. You're only going to do that by doing wider stance. So sumo deadlifts, wide stance, box squats. All right, those are things you might need to build that up. However, If you're getting pain, you can't go as wide as you're going right now. You can't. You're going to have to bring it in a bit. And it is what it is. It's fine. Work with it. But it's also indicative that either you have a structural limit, which depending on how wide you're going could be the case, although for 90% of guys that isn't the case. Probably 10%. Unless you're going really wide, then it very well might be. But if you're going as wide as I'm going there, it's possibly a strength issue. So work on the mobility and the strength. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.